All right, so my relationship with the Jurassic Park and the Jurassic World franchise is a weird one. Like pretty much everyone on the planet, I love the first Jurassic Park. I really cannot stand the three Jurassic World movies. I do not think they're very good. I think the first one is a bit of popcorn fun if you're really being charitable, and the other two are genuine abominations of blockbuster filmmaking. I covered the three Jurassic World movies in their own video because I was really ironically anticipating Jurassic World Rebirth. I was jokingly calling it Jurassic World Afterbirth. I think I just find the Jurassic World franchise funny because you're never going to see anyone wearing a Jurassic World t-shirt. You will only see people wearing a Jurassic Park t-shirt. You know, like there's just something about the franchise that didn't land after a while. And the fact that they were redoing it this quickly had me sitting there scratching my head being like, why even bother? And then on top of that, to further my ironic anticipation, there was an Uber Eats, an Uber One promotion where you could get, if you pre-ordered tickets at Hoyt's in Australia, you could get a Dino T-Rex head for a popcorn bucket. And I got it. I was there opening night in Australia for Jurassic World Rebirth, and I was ready to throw my tomatoes at the screen. And guys, for some reason, I'm very surprised to say this, I actually thought it was okay. I don't think it's great. I don't think it even holds a candle to the first Jurassic Park, but I would take Jurassic World Rebirth over any three of the original Jurassic World movies any day of the week. I think one of the big strengths of Jurassic World Rebirth is the fact that they actually are framing the dinosaurs as scary. The sense of scale here is genuinely fantastic. Humans are completely dwarfed by the size and scale of these dinosaurs. The film is making them look epic again. They are not just like weird Marvel characters that Chris Pratt's riding around on a motorcycle with. They're not, you know, constantly fighting with one another and pulling off kung fu moves. These are framed as genuine creatures of nature that man should not be playing with. And I think that was refreshing. The movie opens with this section where it's kind of explaining that after Jurassic World crumbled in the original Jurassic World 3 film series, there are still some dinosaurs like floating around, but most of them have moved to the equator. And as a result, there's like a long neck, whatever they're called. There's like that dinosaur with a massive extended neck just in the city that needs to be moved, kind of like a bear that's escaped the zoo or something. It's really interesting. The movie's not perfect, all right? I think Scarlett Johansson's writing is kind of god-awful for the first 30 minutes of the movie, like genuinely cringe. She's trying to pull off like Marvel-esque humor, but the writing is awful and the framing is strange. On top of that, Jonathan Bailey's introduction, I think, is just a massive wasted opportunity, and we'll talk about that later. But in the initial early stages, I was just like, as long as the dinosaur stuff is good, this might actually escape through. And the big thing here is the dinosaur action is really good and there's a lot of it, all right? So outside of the dinosaur stuff, this is barely scraping by as a film. I will acknowledge that. It's not great. It's not even particularly good. It looks really solid. It's clearly shot on film. The sound design is excellent. All the technical elements are really solid, minus a few green screen shots that are establishing a location on a cliffside towards the end of the movie. But besides that, it all looks and sounds and feels really good, which is so refreshing after watching the CGI slop that was Jurassic World 1, 2, and 3. On top of that, I think the characters here are interesting enough, all right? They're not written particularly well, but I like the dynamics and the archetypes here. For example, I think Jonathan Bailey as a performer and actor and as a character here is fantastic. I think it's a good idea, and I just wish they fleshed him out more. On top of that, I actually think the plot here is good enough, you know? How can you make a sequel to Jurassic Park? Jurassic World's answer was we just go bigger and more obnoxious and kind of do the same thing again, but not quite. Whereas this one is like, okay, no, we're essentially going to treat it like King Kong. There is an island where all the dinosaurs are hanging out, and we need to go to the island to get some dinosaur DNA to help cure the world of cardiovascular disease or something like that. You know, they're going over there to get some dino DNA to help advance medicine for humans. It's a decent enough hook to have some characters on a strange island where dinosaurs are lurking, and not as tourist attractions, as actual works of nature, you know, and I think that's a really fascinating idea. I love how they're framed. I love how the movie sets up these scenarios. All the dino action here is good, and you get a lot of it. The section you've seen in the trailer in the water with the Montosaurus or whatever it is, the one that swims around that looks like a giant shark, goes on for a long time. There are genuinely great sequences here. There's a family here that I know a lot of reviewers have been ripping to shreds, and I don't think they're great, but they're good enough as potential dino food, in my opinion. So there's this family, right? And for some reason, the dad decides to take his 2 young daughters and a boyfriend on a sailing boat in a sea, in an ocean, which he knows dinosaurs may inhabit. He even says at one point, like, there are 50 boats out here. What are the chances we were the ones that were going to be targeted by dinos? I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Just take them to Donut King. Why are you taking them in an ocean with dinosaurs? But moving past that clunky writing, we have a family in the mix as well, right? And the opening section where they are toppled by a water dino and you see the sense of scale of their entire sailing boat compared to the individual people, and then the sailing boat compared to this giant dinosaur, was actually good visualization. I was into it. On top of that, there's a T-Rex scene where the T-Rex is framed as a scary giant dinosaur. It's nice. Now, I will say, I think the dinosaurs pull their punches on multiple occasions in this movie. Whenever they have the jump on someone, whenever they're approaching someone, they kind of choose to walk at 0.25 speed. It's a bit frustrating, but aside from that, all the dino stuff here is really cool. And again, this is from the director, right, of the 2014 Godzilla, I believe, Gareth Edwards. And he knows how to frame dinosaurs, all right? Even the mutant D-Rex is framed as this horrific abomination that should never have been created and almost seemingly just wants to be left alone. And I kind of liked that creature framing. On top of that, one thing I want to give credit for also is there is a sense of wonder in a certain scene here, right? Jonathan Bailey's character, this kind of like dinosaur enthusiast, dinosaur scientist who knows everything about all the dinos, is genuinely just like floored when he sees these long neck dinosaurs with these really long tails. And it's actually quite a sweet moment. It's a sweet moment for him, and it's also just great visual storytelling. You get to sit and just like enjoy these dinos. And I just wish this movie had a better script. They're clearly playing with this idea that Scarlett Johansson is like the hardened mercenary who needs a sense of humanity, whereas Jonathan Bailey is the one that sees these creatures as animals and cares about all humanity and all creatures. And I think you really, if you wrote this a bit better, could have had some really interesting clashes. I also think personally, to throw my little writing ideas in the ring, I think Jonathan Bailey should have been framed as a co-lead rather than a co-star to Scarlett Johansson. You know, like, we see the movie, we see the world through Scarlett Johansson's character, and we meet him through when Scarlett Johansson meets him. But I'm just sitting there thinking we could have had such great, like, if we really wanted to have a movie with good characters, you could have had an opening intro credit scene where it's cutting to the way Scarlett Johansson starts her day, and it's clinical and cold and precise. You know, maybe her coffee machine goes off and she like, you know, throws something at it to like turn the coffee machine off. You establish that she's clinical and cold and precise and really good at what she does. And on the other end, you have Jonathan Bailey, who sleeps in. He's a bit all over the place. Maybe he has dinosaur pajamas. He has dinosaur posters everywhere. And he rushes down to the little dinosaur museum or whatever that he works at that no one has interested in anymore. Like, it just, you could have really set up some interesting arcs and really lent into potential conflict with them. But the big thing here is at a certain point, the dinosaur spectacle is so rock solid and such a breath of fresh air after how shockingly bad, especially Jurassic World 2 and Jurassic World 3 were, that I was just kind of relieved, frankly. I was so surprised that I was actually having an okay time. You know, the T-Rex scene with the raft is a scene that apparently the franchise has wanted to pull off for ages. It was in the original Jurassic Park book and never made it to screen. So that was really fun to see. I think also, if I'm throwing writing ideas in the ring, I think separating the family from the main cast of characters, Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Bailey, and Mahershala Ali, was a strange choice, all right? So the family essentially starts off as their own little side story, right? They're sailing, they get caught up in dinosaurs. Oh, what do you know? Our main characters who are also looking for that dinosaur cross paths with them and choose to help them. Perfect, all right? Now you have crossing paths. The thing I found weird is after they cross paths, after they team up, they decide to then be split again. The writers decide to split them again. I don't know why you didn't have half the family with half the military group and the other half of the family with the other half of the military group. You know, strange choice. Like, it's weird. You brought them together just to separate them again, and the dynamics are weirdly boring. You know, there's this weird arc around the dad of this random family doesn't really like the boyfriend of his daughter in this young family, so he doesn't like his daughter's boyfriend, essentially, right? And for some reason, they resolve this arc 40 minutes into a 2-hour movie. Like, he deadass just turns over and goes, you know what, you're a good kid. I can see some goodness in you. And I'm like, why didn't you split them up and have this boyfriend save the youngest daughter or save the dad, and then the dad comes around? Another thing I will say is I think it could have killed off a couple more characters. It killed off enough, but kind of the characters you expected to die. And there's a moment where they imply one of the kind of main characters is going to sacrifice themselves, and they do the whole sacrifice thing, and then they do the thing I hate where they go, even though we clearly implied the person died, and showed them literally up to an impossible scenario in a split-second moment where there is no way they possibly could have escaped, because we didn't show them being literally torn in half, they actually survived. I hate this shit, all right? I don't know if you guys have seen Eternals, so I won't full spoil, but there is a character that literally like sacrifices themselves at a certain point, all right? And I remember afterwards, it is very clear they sacrifice themselves. All of the music playing, everything is implying that this person did the thing, all right? On top of that, if you know anything about mythology, it's a direct one-to-one. And then I remember afterwards going on Reddit and everyone sat there being like, we actually didn't see that character explode or melt, so therefore he's probably alive for the sequel. And I remember I was so frustrated with people. I was like, do we really need to ruin what could be an emotional moment by showing someone literally combust? But apparently you do. And the thing is, scenes like this in Jurassic World Rebirth, where you have someone not be torn in half, even though it would have been impossible for them to survive, given the amount of time you showed us they have, just frustrates me, you know, because it validates these people that go, oh, well, you didn't show it, they must be alive. And I was sitting there being like, please don't have him be alive, but he was alive. But aside from that, guys, I'm surprised to be saying that I seem to be in the minority here. I didn't like F1. Everyone seemed to like F1. I'm not saying this is a great movie, and I wouldn't even recommend this to people unless you are actively which in the Jurassic World franchise and want to already kind of see it. But as it stands, this is a solid 6 out of 10, which I know isn't great, but 6 out of 10 to me is like, if you really want to see it, it's good enough. And that's the thing. Now, maybe that isn't what we want from our massive scale blockbusters, but I've just been seeing so many awful legacy sequels lately, awful remakes, awful big budget schlock. You know, I would take this over Lilo and Stitch. I would take this over F1, truthfully. Like, this is just a decently solid 2-hour time at the movies where the action is good enough, the spectacle is good enough, and I had a good enough time. And sometimes that's all I need. It's not perfect, and this isn't even a strong recommendation from me. This is literally just, if you are interested in the new Jurassic World movie, you will probably like it well enough. It's not game-changing, it's not groundbreaking, but I do think with a few changes to the script, you could have kept all the dino stuff and just beefed up these characters, made the dynamics more interesting, paired them off in different directions, and you could have had genuinely the first fantastic Jurassic Park sequel. As it stands, for my money, hot take, this is the first good Jurassic Park sequel. I would take this over any of the other Jurassic World movies. And I think at a certain point, Scarlett Johansson and Jonathan Bailey really step into their characters and it becomes a decent enough movie. It actually started to work on me. You know, there are things I wish were different, dynamics I wish were different, pairings that I wish were different, but the dino stuff is good and there's a lot of it and that's what you're there for. There's a great sense of scale. I loved the bird dino scene where they're trying to get an egg from its nest. I thought that had a good enough sense of tension. I even liked the D-Rex and the reveal and the way it was framed as this horrific design that lurked in the shadows. I liked the bird velociraptors. Like, I thought they all visually looked really, really striking, really solid, and they were intimidating and menacing and scary. When they showed up, I was like, oh no, in a good way, which is refreshing, because after watching the previous three, I was not expecting to say that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in Jurassic World Rebirth, it's got my tick of approval on the condition that you want to see another Jurassic World movie. Otherwise, it's not good enough that if you don't go to the movies often to go see, wait on streaming. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Have a lovely day.